What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TVs. All right, so I thought we'd go ahead and continue with this top 10 small forwards list. Hadn't done it in a little while as far as updating it. And just to do a brief recap, I believe at number 10 I had James Worthy. Number 9, Dominique Wilkins. Number 8, Scottie Pippen. Number 7, I had Rick Barry. Number 6, Elgin Baylor. And number 5, I decided to bring him down one peg, and that is Kevin Durant. Now, I know a lot of people might think that there's something wrong with that. It is what it is, you know. You don't have to agree with that. At number 4, I put him up a spot, and that is John Havlicek. And, John Havlicek is probably my favorite OG player. I gotta think about that before I make it definitive. Yeah, he's my favorite OG player. I love the way he played. He played hard. The way that he played sort of reminds you of Larry Bird. Hustle hard. You could even argue his pace was even faster than Bird's. And that is because of the fact that he had some birth abnormalities. He had lungs that were much larger than the average human being, which of course allows him to oxygenate faster and better than most people. And he had a large heart. Now, not an unhealthy and large heart, but he just had a bigger than normal heart, which just allowed him to be a spectacular athlete with incredible endurance. And, he just never seemed to tire. And there is, you can find it on YouTube, it's a scrimmage. Well, one-on-one, I can say a scrimmage because that's other people. That involves a team. But it's a one-on-one that's between Reggie Jackson of the Yankees at the time, but he played basketball, he was good at basketball, and John Havlicek. Now, mind you, Reggie's a great athlete. And Reggie at first, he's competing with John Havlicek, but over time, as they're playing, he gets tired. he starts to get tired. And John Havlicek is not blowing wind at all. And at the end, Reggie's just fucking tired. And Havlicek still isn't really tired. And that's one of the advantages that he had, man, is that he could just, how Shaq says that no one could bang with him for 4 quarters back when he was playing? Well, with John Havlicek, you couldn't play the game like him. You tired by the 4th quarter. If you was playing defense and an offense, John Havlicek's offense could be his defense because he's tiring you out as a defender. But anyway, John Havlicek, I'm just going to give his resume right quick. John Havlicek played from 1962 to 1978. He is the all-time leading scorer for the Boston Celtics at 26,395 points. That could have been Paul Pierce had he not been traded toward the end of his career. He was the 1974 NBA Finals MVP, 13-time NBA All-Star, 4-time All-NBA First Team, 7-time All-NBA Second Team, 5-time NBA All-Defensive First Team, 5 times. And his last team that he made, he was 36 years old. 36 years old. And mind you, All-Defensive First Team didn't start until 1969. So he could have been on a lot more All-Defensive teams if that award was around back 1962 going on. 3-time NBA All-Defensive Second Team, NBA All-Rookie First Team, 1963. He was on the 35th, 50th, and posthumously, sadly, the 75th NBA Anniversary Team. His number 17 is retired by the Boston Celtics. And I'm just going to add this in there. I normally don't do this, but NCAA champion in 1960, consensus second team All-American in 1962, third team All-American, Associated Press, 1961, and his number 5 is retired permanently by the Ohio State Buckeyes. For his career, he scored 26,395 points, or averaged 20.8 points per game. He grabbed 8,007 rebounds, or 6.3 rebounds per game, and dished out 6,114 assists, or played in 4.8. Or dished out 4.8 assists per ball game. He also played in a Boston Celtics record 1,270 ball games. He was born in 1940, and he was born in Martins Ferry, Ohio. He was a 3-sport athlete at Bridgeport High School in Bridgeport, Ohio, where he was a boyhood friend of Baseball Hall of Famer Phil Niekro. Havlicek played college basketball at Ohio State University with future 7-time NBA All-Star Jerry Lucas, who was his roommate, future first-round NBA draft pick Larry Siegfried, future coaching legend Bobby Knight, and many others, including Mel Knoll. The 1960 Ohio State Buckeyes, coached by head coach Fred Taylor, and assistant coaches Jack Graff and Frank Truth, won the 1960 NCAA title. Havlicek was named as an alternate of the 1960 United States national team that competed in the 1960 Summer Olympics. Now, Havlicek was such a great athlete that he was drafted by both the Boston Celtics of the NBA and the Cleveland Browns of the NFL. After competing briefly as a wide receiver in the Browns training camp that year, he decided to focus his energies completely on basketball. And he basically was, as far as positions concerned, a swingman that could play either the guard position, shooting guard, or the 4 position, but more or less, for the majority of his career, he was a small forward. He was nicknamed Hondo after the 1953 movie The Same Name starring John Wayne. And he picked up and inherited the 6-man role, which was, in essence, created by Frank Ramsey. But he took what Frank Ramsey did and improved upon it. He was the guts of the team. He was the energy, the spark that came off the bench during the Bill Russell years from 1962 until the late 60s. His role was to come off the bench and provide energy and be that offensive punch coming off the bench. And oftentimes, John Havlicek would have exciting defensive plays, and he was known initially more for his defense than his offense. He was more of a matter of fact, when you think about it, there are a lot of interesting parallels to John Havlicek and Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi was known more as a defensive stopper, as was John Havlicek. He could not shoot, ironically, for a guy that scored 26,000 points, right? But he worked feverishly on his game year after year after year until he became a pretty good offensive player by the late 60s. I think he was averaging maybe 17, 18, 19 points a game by that point. He was a really good offensive player. The difference between him and Kawhi Leonard is night and day when it comes to toughness and playing through injuries. I mean, it's just, you can't even compare the two when it comes to that. One of the greatest plays in the history of the NBA was his clutch steal in the closing seconds of the 1965 Eastern Conference Championship. In the 7th and final game, played at Boston Garden on April 15, the Celtics led the Sixers 110-109 with 5 seconds left and only needing to inbound the ball underneath their basket to secure the victory and advance to the finals. However, Bill Russell's pass struck a wire which was hanging down from the ceiling and helped to support the baskets. The turnover then gave the Sixers and Wilt Chamberlain the ball and a chance to win the game in the series. But as Greer's pass came inbounds, Havlicek spun, leaped, and tipped the pass to Sam Jones. Veteran referee Earl Strom, who wrote this game action in his memoir, Calling the Shots, called Havlicek's reaction one of the greatest plays he ever saw in his 32 years as a professional official. Announcer Johnny Moe's call of Havlicek stole the ball was dubbed by the NBA as the most famous radio call in basketball history. I mean, we all know that play. You know what I'm saying? Havlicek steals it. Havlicek steals the ball. But you know, Havlicek kind of had two different careers. After Bill Russell and Sam Jones retired in 1969, the Celtics had a season of futility, and it looked like the dynasty was dead. But John Havlicek would become the captain of that team. And in 1970, they drafted Dave Cowens, and they regrouped, and eventually, of course, they would win two more championships in the 1970s. I believe they're the only team to win more than one championship in the 1970s. And as a matter of fact, had it not been for an injury to John Havlicek late in the 72-73 season, they probably would have won three titles. Now, the Knicks wound up winning the Eastern Conference championship series against Boston, I think in 6 games. But Havlicek I think he had some type of shoulder injury that was affecting him as far as playing and shooting the basketball. Had Havlicek been healthy, Boston probably would have won that series and won the championship. They won 68 games that year. Dave Cowens was MVP, and Tom Heinsohn was Coach of the Year. So that was a great, great team, but injuries robbed that team of ultimate glory. John Havlicek played all the way through 1978, and like I said before, he's an all-time leading scorer in Celtics history. He became the first player to score 1,000 points in 16 consecutive seasons, and his best season scoring was 1970-71 when he averaged 28.9 points per game. He also owns the record for most points scored in a playoff game, if I'm not mistaken, for the Celtics with 54. Although I have a feeling Jason Tatum may break that record one day. And of course, John Havlicek was a popular fixture for many years after his NBA career. Just very popular, man, around the Boston Celtics area. And he became an investor in various businesses. He never had an interest in coaching. And unfortunately, John Havlicek developed Parkinson's disease in the last few years of his life. And on April 25th, 2019, John Havlicek died at the age of 79 in Jupiter, Florida. It was a life that was well lived, a life of purpose, a life of strength, a life of achievements, accomplishments, and success. John Havlicek, to me, the fourth greatest small forward to ever play the game. And by the way, I didn't mention this. So I don't have to just rely on rings. You know what I'm saying? I could talk about so many other things other than championships. But I do want to mention this. John Havlicek won 8 championships. 8 championships. This is why I had to reassess and put him back ahead of Kevin Durant. He won 8 championships, and he was 8-0 in the finals. John Havlicek never lost an NBA Finals. Never. So, shout out to Hondo. Tell me what you guys think.